Rob, did you have anything before I started, or you're good? Okay.
Just going to remind you of the recording. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So welcome, everyone. We're going to talk about screen flows and specifically flow templates in Avocado this afternoon. So we're going to hear from Rob and myself about this. So I know we've already had a Flow user group before, but with Salesforce, they're continuing to invest in flows. We've seen consistent updates to the Flow module with some pretty significant ones coming in the summer 24 release. So some of you may already have this. Some of you might be getting this or in the process of getting this. But we're seeing quite a large investment from Salesforce on flows. And that is really driving the clicks, not code side of Salesforce. So it's giving you as admin users the ability to create automated processes without needing a developer to do Apex code. Obviously, that being said, there are definitely some scenarios where you do want to use Apex code, but some scenarios that you can definitely handle potentially on your own or with our assistants using flows. So following up on our last meeting, we did discuss building an Avocado Flow repository. When we started to build this repository and started looking at some of our client environments, we noticed that a lot of you have a lot of custom fields that you're using for flows, and it very quickly became a large project for us. So we're going to be reaching out to ask for your assistance. We're moving towards template-based flows in our Avocado package to give you that customizability. But we still want to reach out and allow you all to share with one another some flows that you may be using that you think others might find useful. So look for an email from our team, probably tomorrow or Friday. We're going to have a list of flows potentially in your environment, anything you're comfortable sharing with other clients, and any information that we might need. So if you have things that you know need custom fields, if there's custom email templates you're using, anything along those lines that you think would help us help other people if we were to share this would be fantastic. And we're hoping to have this for everyone by Friday, July 12th. I'm going to hand off to Rob. We're going to talk about specifically screen flows, which may or may not be a type of flow that you are knowledgeable about. So take it away, Rob.
Thanks, Rachel. I'll just take over sharing as well. All right, thanks everybody for coming today. Just to introduce the JCC of Dallas. Like many of our Avocado clients, they're a thriving, complex business. Much of their success comes from some of the unique processes and procedures they use to run their business. And as many of you are familiar as well, Avocado does handle the majority of these processes. However, there's a few that the JCC of Dallas wanted to track that fall outside the scope of Avocado. Today, we're going to talk about two of these use cases, one being membership changes, so cancellation requests, hold requests, change requests. JCC of Dallas has very specific requirements for that, and it does require, at this time, manual intervention. So we're going to use ScreenFlow. We are using a ScreenFlow in order to intake those requests. The second example we're going to look at today is a new product request workflow. So as we all know, Avocado is built on Salesforce, and Salesforce provides a lot of the native functionality. For example, most clients have access to and already licensed to use Service Cloud and case management. So for those of you that aren't aware, that functionality, you most likely have that available to you to use. To address the needs of JCC of Dallas, we configured Service Cloud and cases and are using ScreenFlows in order to streamline that intake process. So on the screen here is an example of what we've done through Avocado Portal. I'm going to show you a demo here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you that you have a lot of flexibility here, and as you drill down into the different case types that you're going to accept, you'll find that the page is dynamic and fields are added and removed as required. In addition, on the Salesforce backend side, we've created different page layouts for each of these request types so that staff members have just the information they need in front of them when they're presented with an open case. So I'm going to jump right into demo. So this is in one of our QA environments. For those of you unfamiliar, we have this contact us information. And along with this, you can link out to an external website. In this case, what we've done is we've linked this to another Salesforce community site that contains our flows, our screen flows. But you could link this anywhere. So if you want to have, a common contact us page across all of your public-facing sites, such as your public website, OpenWire, or anything like that, you have the ability to link to that common contact us page through this functionality. So once I select that, we're going to the case management site. In this case, and of course, this is all customizable. So you can have logos, you can change the colors, adjust this to whatever your needs might be. So you can see that Dallas JCC, they have a number of case types, case reasons. We're going to just focus on membership today. And in this case, once we've selected our record type, we have three options here. We want to cancel the membership, freeze the membership, or change. So you'll see right now the questions I'm posed with if I choose cancel. If I choose freeze membership, you'll see that it dynamically changes. In addition, the pick list of why you want to change your membership also changes to the reasons that are acceptable. So if I flip back to cancel, you'll see the default is financial reasons. If I were to say I'm moving, I could cancel my membership, and we present the person with some options. In this case, we can collect information like their future address if we want to refer them to another location. So for today's demo, I'll just choose financial reasons. And if I click next, you'll see that the case is submitted. So if I switch over to the back end of Salesforce, right now I'm looking at all open cases. And you'll see that the latest case that I opened is the one we just did together. And this is just basic case management at this point. But again, the page layout is specific to membership cancellation case type. You can also see, the alternative to opening through the portal would be picking and choosing what information you want to select here. So for the second example, which was a new product request, I'm sure we're all familiar with how this works internally in our own organizations. In this case, we just have a new button here, new product request. This is a screen flow that is staff facing. So staff can come in here, they can request a new product. We can give it a name, description, specify all the options that we might require. No deposit. We can include things like registration start date. So if we were going to start offering this potentially next weekend, this will be like kind of an indicator to the person receiving the case that this might be a higher priority than one that we're offering in the fall. Marketing start date. Marketing's got to be ahead of registration, so we need this in by the 2nd so that marketing can start pushing it. And again, your case is created, and we can go and have a look at that in the back end as well. Now, one thing to note, stage 1 for Dallas was to just collect the information. Stage 2 is going to be automating the actual creation, both through the membership flow, cancellation, freeze, or change, as well as the new product creation. So assuming that the information is correct, even if it's not, the staff member assigned to the case can adjust that information accordingly, hit submit, and have that information automatically created. All right. So there's a few other things to keep in mind when you're designing your own ScreenFlow. Most important piece of advice we can give you is to have a plan and document your flow, what your desired outcome is before you even begin. In particular, make sure that you have your failure states covered off. So if, for example, the one that always trips people up when they start using flows, whether it's the ScreenFlow or normal flow, is sending email. So if you decide in your flow that you must send an email and the person doesn't have an email address, the system will stop and you will not be able to make a change or continue on until you either give that person an email address or adjust your flow accordingly to make accommodations for that. Starting specific, always have conditions for launching flow when possible. You don't want to be triggering flows and then making decisions. You want to make the decision right up front. And always build your flows in Sandbox. I know that you're all familiar. You all hear that frequently from us, and we can't encourage you enough to test your flows in Sandbox. Be mindful of potential code conflicts. So in addition to Avocado, you may have other things like NPSP, CauseView is another big one, and any other Salesforce apps that may be triggering on the same item that you are. So you want to pay particular attention to, the objects listed here that if you're going to have a flow that's going to be making changes to it, you just have to be mindful of the fact that the system may also be making changes as you're making your own adjustments through the flow. Be mindful of race conditions. So you want to make sure that nothing has a record lock while you're trying to update it with the flow. These are just Salesforce best practices. Be mindful of other scheduled processes. So if you have multiple flows, maybe triggering something to happen after the fact, which is what a lot of people do to prevent conflicts. For instance, if a membership is modified, we're going to run the flow 5 minutes later rather than at the time of modification to prevent any conflict. However, if you have 10 flows running 5 minutes after the membership is modified, you may run into some issues there. Be aware of your Salesforce limitations. So best advice here is to always go and have a look, refresh your memory on what those limitations are. Especially if you're dealing with large data sets. If you're going to run a particular flow against hundreds or thousands of records, you want to make sure that you're taking that into consideration. You also need to take into consideration the maximum number of scheduled flow interviews. So one flow interview is created for each record retrieved by a flows query. So so in this case, the maximum number of scheduled flow interviews per 24 hours is 250,000, or the number of users licensed in your org multiplied by 2. So you can see that, if you're dealing with tens of thousands of records, it would be very easy to hit this limit. So you just need to be aware of that. Other code considerations, avoid using loops in SLQL or DML statements. Consider whether something should be in a flow or implemented with Apex code, going back to Rachel's comment earlier. Apex code is better for the more complex tasks, and it can improve your system performance. And it's also better at the high volume tasks. Avoid hard coding IDs. So often what we'll do is rather than specifying an ID, we will do it as a lookup. So if you're trying to grab a record type, for instance, in a lot of cases, people will go and find the Salesforce ID of that record type to specify in their flow. However, you can actually do a query right within flows to say, go and get me the record type ID of the record type that starts with membership, and it will return the correct ID for you. And be careful with complex formula variables. So formulas are great, but the more complex formula you use, it could impact your performance. So wanted to touch on some best practices for sending emails. So add an email check. So before you get to the point where you're going to construct and send an email using a flow or a screen flow, make sure that email address exists before you get that far down the path. Otherwise, you will start generating errors, which will negatively impact your user experience. AKA, it will stop working. The flow will fail to run if it attempts to send an email without an address. So you could get, in the example of making a case, if we were going to trigger an email at the end to say, here's confirmation email to the member. If that member didn't have an email address, strange edge case because they are signed in, but if for whatever reason they didn't, that flow would fail at that point, resulting in a negative experience. Allow customers to opt out. So Salesforce, they provide an app exchange, an application on the app exchange that allows you to add the opt-out functionality to emails sent from Salesforce. So if you're going to be sending a lot of emails to your members, just make sure you give them the ability to opt out. That's especially important. I know that there's loopholes because they are paying members, but there is this functionality is here if you wish to do it. Set a related record ID, get access to additional merge fields. So when you're doing send email, you can set your merge fields appropriately. So you can see the example here. You can find your triggering object and your record ID, or you can specify like a hard-coded ID, which again, we don't recommend, but you do have the option to do that as well. If you need assistance, deactivate, don't delete. So we always recommend deactivating a flow, potentially renaming it if you want to make sure that it's not run anymore. It allows you to just return to it or reference it in the future if you need any information from that. Next thing to do is to check to see if there's already a similar flow. Because if you do run into a roadblock, you can always go reference other flows to see how certain examples have been implemented. So that's always an option for you as well. And you can check with your TechShare account manager to see if we already have a flow that can help you out with what you're looking to accomplish. Lastly, for assistance, you can use AI. The Salesforce Einstein AI can be used to create a first draft of the flow. So you can tell Einstein in plain English what you're trying to accomplish, and Einstein will attempt to build that flow for you. Like any AI, it takes several attempts to get the result that you want, but it's going to get you close. So that's always a good option, and it's something fun to play around with as well. And the TechShare team, of course, we're here. We can provide additional consulting services, generate custom flows for your organization. Just before I move on, I just wanted to show you real quick why we recommend testing your flows in Sandbox. Because when you get into a screen flow like the one you just looked at, this is the diagram for that screen, the membership cancellation screen flow. Once you get into it and you start adding all your different options to make that really smooth user experience, you can see that it gets complicated very, very fast. So every single one of these branches on the tree need to be individually tested and verified, and make sure that you have all of your error conditions in place to make sure that everything runs smoothly for you. So flow templates. We've made a transition internally to use flow templates rather than flows. This is useful for you because you can just make a copy of it, and you always have the original template to refer back to if you make changes or you want to revert something. You've always got that original flow template to revert back to. The flows will come with default variables set already, so you will, once you clone that, you will need to go through it fairly thoroughly Make sure that you've updated and changed any of the variables, such as your org-wide email address, maybe a custom reply to address, whatever it might be. And again, always test in Sandbox. Cloning the template is fairly straightforward. You just find the, you just start a new flow and make sure you select a template. That brings us to the end. We'll open up the floor to any questions.
Since no one's immediately jumping in with questions, I'm just going to add, we do have a Avocado Flow playbook that will be coming out in line with this, that kind of goes over all those best practices again, as well as for any of our templated flows. It'll provide you with those same directions and then anything you need to specifically modify for that flow. So to Rob's point, if you need to update the email address to be your org-wide email address, or if you need to update, you want it to run on the 7th day of the month and we have it set to the 1st, those types of variables that you can modify as you go through and clone these flows in your environment. So that'll be available as well following the recording.
Yeah, Adam.
My question is a little bit about flows and screen flows, but more about, I think, the Avocado product roadmap. I've had a couple of use cases for screen flows, and by the time I got to the bottom of those use cases, I realized that it was too complicated to expose the screen flow to an external user, like a customer. Is it on the roadmap to give us more options to integrate screen flows or like pop-outs in the Avocado portal, rather than clicking on, contact us or some other fly out to another website?
Rachel, I don't know if you have any.
I was gonna say, do you want me to take that one, Rob? Definitely exploring it, Adam. Nothing like conclusively on the roadmap yet, but definitely moving towards how we can leverage more native Salesforce functionality, and where we can kind of insert those components. So a high level discussion right now, but nothing specifically set in stone, if that kind of vaguely answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Certainly looked at screen flows for solving some business cases for internal users, but dynamic Lightning page layouts have really seemed simpler for now. So until I can, give our customers an easy access to the screen flow, I've resisted using them.
Yeah, and if you have specific use cases that you think there's value in, Adam, and you want to send me them, like I'm happy to take a look and see what that looks like for the product. If you have like examples off the top of your head, that's definitely something we can work towards. Not opposed to it either way. Yeah, no problem.
You can always count on Adam to bring a good question to the table. Thanks, Adam. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Appreciate that. As always, we'll post this publicly and send you all a link as well. We know it's a busy time this week for Y Canada, so we'll be sure to pass the link along so it can be shared with the rest of the team. Thank you.